This is the thing that pisses me off to no end about this industry. I've never seen it in any other industry anywhere. The realtors are designing themselves to be so far from their client that they don't have to do anything. Real estate is not a passive business. It cannot be designed not to do the open houses, not to do the communication with the clients, not to do all of this stuff.
Because I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly what they want to do. They want to do YouTube, get a lead, write a contract, and off, which is quite...
It's why Zillow exists, Vikram. That's why Zillow is still a thing.
You're listening to the number one real estate podcast in the world. We talk with real estate professionals all across North America about their wins, losses, lessons, stories, help you win in your local market today. My name's Cody from Sharon Stream, joined with Vikram Deal of the Real Estate Sales Academy. Vikram, what's happening? What's good? You taking your pills? That's exciting. You know, for those that didn't see that on YouTube, you know, I just got to experience. You got to experience Vikram's 95 pills that he takes daily in order to keep care of himself. He's a biochemist at heart, a biohacker is what they call him. So now you know something a little bit about Vikram. So I feel that we're already off to a good start. How you doing, Vikram?
I'm good, man. How you doing? We got water in the house.
Yeah.
But the stories of Colombia never cease to amaze me. The front door lock is jammed. The house that I'm in only has one door in and out, and then it's a mountain. So the only way to get in is you got to crawl like on the side of the house, and one slip, like if you don't hit unfortunately the tree in the right area with your foot, you go sliding down a mountain. And I've already done that. So yesterday I had my bike, groceries, 5 liters of water, and I'm like 8 o'clock at night. It's dark. I'm like, I'm gonna die today. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna literally die on this mountainside. And then the guy that owns the home, he's like, well, we'll get somebody out there like Saturday or Sunday. I'm like, yo, give me the phone. I'm gonna call this dude right now. And like, we're locked in the house, bro. It's crazy. Where are you, bro?
Oh, you know, I'm not locked in my house. I'm not on a mountainside, and I haven't slipped down with my bike. So I would say that my week is going better than yours. But that's neither here or there. No, things are good, man. You were 2 more weeks left in Medellin. I go back to head back to Canada for a bit, come back to Medellin, and then we have the real event coming up. So Rise is coming up in October. I know that you're speaking at the event. We have we have a booth there. Tell me a little bit about what you're going to speak about.
Yeah, same thing we speak about every day, helping agents get more listings, helping agents convert more appointments into clients, helping agents overcome objections. Actually, I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but Sharon reached out to me the other day. He's like, hey, bro, can you open up like 10 spots inside the Real Estate Sales Academy so that we can do some trials like what you're doing with your company? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I could do that for you, Sharon. I can do anything, but I guess like why? He said, I'm getting calls from agents left and right that last year we're at 40 deals in August and this year they're at 15. He's like, and so, you know, what happens is like a lot of times when the market goes up, we think that our skills have improved, but it's really just the market is, you know, it's like, what do they say? If you raise the water, all the ships rise in the harbor, right? Raise the tide. Well, that's what happened. And now when the tide's coming out, agents are going down 30%, like the normal, like the industry average. Agents are going down 50%, 60%, 70%, 80% because they didn't improve their skills. They were just riding the wave on in. And now that the market's going down, the agents that were improving their skills, they might be down 30%, but that's at least industry average. Some are down less. Some are down like 15, 10%. And they're just throwing fuel on the fire and they're just taking market share. So we opened up, what did we open up? We got 6 spots left after the email went out yesterday. Bunch of people responded, but they're not qualified to be in the program right now. So they're going to join us inside the Real Estate Sales Dojo, get some free training. And then hopefully, you know, once they get trained, they get some sales, they'll join us inside the Sales Academy. That's what we're doing these days, trying to help agents out.
Yeah, man. I love what you said. You know, me and Sharon have had multiple conversations about this over the last couple of years, especially like with the market, like, you know, in 2020 when the market crashed for like pretty much everyone, minus realtors, every other industry crashed. My video marketing business blew up overnight. We were required to pivot. And the big thing is, as we rode the wave, I love that you said that. It's like, I remember Simon Bowen asking this question: did the market grow or did your business grow?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important question to ask, like yourself, about 21 and 2022. Did the market grow? Did your business grow? And with this year, if your transaction volume in your industry is down, 22%, but you're only down 22%, then, you've performed with the market. But speaking about markets, we have a very special guest today, and somebody that is connected to Sharon, somebody that is an Aussie at heart, and someone that is doing things very differently than specifically in the U.S. market, because for those that don't know, in the Australian market, there's no buyer representation. So the market is very different. We have a lot of good friends that sell real estate in the Australian market.
Could you imagine agents if they only had to, could you imagine what would happen in the U.S. market if buyer representation just went to zero? Like, how many agents would go out of business, and how many agents would be like, yes, we are taking over the world? It'd be,
I think, let's dive into that in this podcast. We have Ben Brady with us out of Newport Beach. Why don't you give us a 1-minute Cold Notes version of how you got into real estate, what you're currently doing in Newport, how an Aussie came to the U.S. and what he's doing here, what he's doing in real estate. Just give us the Cold Notes version of what you're doing, Ben.
Well, thank you both for having me. It's a pleasure to be on. It's amazing how deep Sharan's tentacles go into the industry and how many people he connects with all of this type of stuff, and obviously how deep it goes into Australia as well. But I've been here for 10 years, so I haven't lost any part of my accent because I play on it too much because the Americans love it so much. So it's every now and then when I need to sort of break some ice, it's "G'day, how you going?" and get it really Australian. And but either way is that really, really quick introduction to real estate. I started in real estate when I was very young. Just out of still while I was in high school, and just coming out of the back end of it. In Australia and New Zealand, it's very the average age of a realtor would probably be in the early 40s. It's a high performing industry in the sense that a lot of people give up going to college and they enter into the real estate industry. The average GCI or average amount that people earn in the Australian real estate market, would probably be somewhere along the lines of $350,000 to $400,000 a year. Very different to the the below welfare statistic of North America. But in essence is that I got into it incredibly young, and then as soon as I was able to get my license, got into that, became a top performing realtor. I'm doing, just over 200 deals my first year. I'm into the business, got into business ownership of 5 offices on the southwestern corridor of Brisbane, Queensland. We sold those businesses in the property management side of the business as well, which is a big part of the Australian real estate model. Is sales and property management go hand in hand. And then in sort of a parallel that was drawn along the entire journey was sort of my auctioneering career. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't really a career. It was just something that you did in Australia because, in our businesses, they were one of the largest business operations for Harcourt's Real Estate, which is the second largest real estate company in Australia and New Zealand, number one in New Zealand, is it's just something you do. 60 to 70% of all of our transactions are done via non-distressed auction. So I became an auctioneer. 90% of my listings were auctions. It was just something that we did. And, that was probably the catalyst to our success within our business, is the way that we ran the auction process. So then when the business is sold and there was a dissolving partnership, is that I got into the corporate element of business of real estate. I became the chief auctioneer for Harcourt's in Queensland, and then very quickly the competitors. There's a company called Ray White, which is the number one real estate company in Australia and New Zealand. And when I say number one, they have 20% market share of the entire country of Australia. It's gigantic. And when they want to solve a problem, they point the money gun at it. Fortunately enough for me, I got the money gun pointed at me to recruit me. And then I went to Mike Green, who owns Harcourt's internationally, and said, "Hey, look, I'm out of here. Thank you so much." And he's like, "Well, tell me about the opportunity they're giving you." And I said, "Well, here it is." And he's like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to match that, but I can give you a better opportunity." I'm like, "Well, what's the opportunity?" And he's like, "Come over to North America with us. We've just launched Harcourt's there, and as a real estate company, and maybe you can build the auction process for the country." And I'm like, "Well, I'm sure that they've got some type of auction process already." And he's like, "Well, not really." So we came over and we did a feasibility study on it in a very small office network at the time. And then sort of, here we are 10 years later, using that concept to build, a real estate business. But at the same time is now we've actually opened it up as a white label concept into all marketplaces. And we're in the process at the moment of trialing a few individual markets where Harcourts doesn't exist to see whether or not it can exist inside an agent community that doesn't have it exclusive and doesn't have, the individual training structure to it.
I would love to start with backing up a little bit to help people that are listening to this podcast that might not understand what the auctioning process is. Maybe they mainly represent buyers. And, we've chatted about this before, and I would be curious to kind of hear it directly from you, because I've heard other agents implement a auction process in their business. But What does that look like for the seller? And what does that look like for the listing agent that is specifically looking to run the auction process inside of their business?
Yeah. Well, I think that first thing that I want to sort of point out is that this process isn't for everybody, because there's a high level of accountability. And what I mean by that is that the realtors that do 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 transactions a year, this really doesn't typically suit. And the reason I say that is because at the end of the day, one reason that we really enjoy auction and one reason that we've really focused on this process is because the reality of it is that it sets an individual structure on the way that the listing has to be operated, and there is a set date and time of which there is a level of accountability for the agent in order to produce a result. Not only is there accountability for buyers and buyers agents in order to do something by an individual set date, which is where we're seeing an incredible value of this process at the moment, but the thing that we've sort of learned, through the process of launching this within marketplaces, external to where we have our individual offices at the moment, is the fact that agents really don't care about something different. They don't want to learn something different. There's too much going on. They've got zero commitment to actually improving their business most of the time with something different than what they already know. And outside of the norm, they don't like being the trailblazers. Now, when I say that, there is a small select few, the early adopters that really love something different and can see that this is a point of difference for their business, that they can win more business with it. However, the tactic that then we've gone through to build our business as quickly as what we have is reaching out to agents where they are at that particular pain point within the marketplace of their listing, which is, it used to be 45 days, but based on the marketplaces that we're looking at the moment, we do a lot in the Bay Area. We're doing a lot also in Seattle. We're doing a lot also on the East Coast in Manhattan as well. And the pain point used to be 45 days that the agent would be like, well, I don't really know what to do next. I've already done a price reduction, and where do I go to now? It's actually now turning into about 25 days that agents are more open to having a conversation with us, because we tried to educate a marketplace. Like, we spent a fair bit of money trying to educate the Bay Area prior to us entering it, so that they would learn the auction process. They would see that it's an option. They can put it as a department of their business. And, you get a select few, like I said, the early adopters that really want to create a department of their business that offers something that can show diversity within their listing presentation in order to compete against really luxury listings. Because again, in the Southern California case studies that we have agents here doing $3 or $4 or $5 or $6 million in GCI purely just doing auctions by reaching out to luxury listings that have sat on the marketplace for a long period of time. Not only are they increasing their average sale price, but they're offering something that no one else is offering to that person. But leading back to the real perspective of where we have grown this is that agents only take control. Agents really are only interested in talking to us when they're in a situation where, and like, if you put like the perfect avatar, it's an agent that's listed a property. It's been on the marketplace for 14 to 21 days. They're either considering a price reduction and they've overpromised in the first degree to the seller because they believe that their opinion of price actually matters. And and from there, okay, is that they're kind of like, oh, well, now I've got to ask them for a price reduction. Now, at that point, sometimes agents will talk to us, but then most of the times it's when they've done a small incremental price reduction, just because they're like, oh, we need a little bit of momentum, or we need to get the listing to repopulate on Zillow or whatever it may be. Okay, and they do a small price reduction. They notice that it really doesn't do anything for them, and then they're really stuck there in a position of, well, what do we do now? That's when they're usually open to talking to us. So
let's jam into this a little bit here. First, because if we don't address the mindset that this is going to go over the head of a lot of people that could really take advantage of this. So you said something interesting. I think we've covered it hard enough on this podcast between Cody and I and our other guests that a lot of real estate agents don't like to do things differently, but they also aren't making the income that they want. First off, you said something interesting. Average agents in Australia are making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. That's the average, right? So even the ones that are struggling, if the average is 354, the ones that are struggling are still making a six-figure income, which is the dream of agents in the United States. So I want to go back a little bit before we get into the technicals of why you should. I mean, you've already addressed why somebody should bring in a new option, especially in this kind of a market. And I sold in Seattle, so we never had a listing for more than 7 days, and we designed it to be on the market for 7 days just so that we could get maximum exposure. But we never had listings. Auctions probably would have been cool because, might have made double-ended more deals. But why do you think, because you come from an outside world, why do you think the agents here in North America especially are so reluctant to learn new things?
It's a good question. I don't believe people are as reluctant as where they are in other parts of the world where we've implemented auction before. It's funny, if you look at the North American business model in general, or just business culture, there is a lot more entrepreneurial spirit within inside North America than what there is anywhere else in the world, if you ask me. And I can arrogantly say that I understand that pretty well by, the 11 countries that we operate in.
Yep.
But the thing that I say in the real estate community, though, regardless of where you are in the world, there is this sense of self-entitlement within the real estate community that once you've done a certain number of deals. So give you an example is that we've got a small real estate franchising company, and we have some corporately owned offices which give us that we used as the incubator to our auction process in Southern California. And the interesting part about that was we very quickly understood that there is no way that we're ever going to compete with the Compasses, the Keller Williams, the people that the EXPs or whatever it may be, the people that actually don't technically really need to make a profit in order to actually operate. We're never, ever going to actually compete with those people. Where we are going to compete is in the trenches, where we take an agent from the very beginning, or that's done early amount of deal, or that's early into the real estate business, and building them up. If you look at our top 50 agents that we have, I think we did it the other day, 40 of them have been with us since the start of their career and now doing in excess of $1 million in GCI through the process of which we have taught them through auction, but through also being a listing orientated person. For our individual companies, auction only makes up about 60% of what we do. So that said, is that the US marketplace from an early concept perspective is perfect. But if you look at then somebody that's done this is the thing that pisses me off to no end about this industry. I've never seen it in any other industry, anywhere. The realtors are designing themselves to be so far from their client that they don't have to do anything. Real estate sales is not a passive business. It cannot be designed in order for you not to do the open houses, not to do the communication with the clients, not to do all of this stuff. Like this team that's going on at the moment is just crap.
I had a team and we were very hands-on with our clients. We were open houses, 3 contacts a week, updates, right? We were our clients rarely had to reach out to us for updates because we were always on top of it, right? Like I was probably too much hands-on with our clients, but we were also crushing it. So when you say that real estate agents, because I think that's a very interesting statement, and Cody, correct me if I'm wrong, but nobody's ever said that on this podcast, and we're on episode over 200, correct?
Yeah, I think we're over 200 episodes now, and I haven't heard that yet. So
you said a very interesting line. You said real estate agents, and when you said it, it resonated immediately with me, Ben, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly what they want to do. They want to do YouTube, get a lead, write a contract, and fuck off. Which is
it's why Zillow exists, Vikram. That's why Zillow is still a thing.
So what does that mean though? Tell me what that means, bro. Tell me what that means that they're trying to not. I'm flabbergasted right now.
Well, I think again, there's a generalization, and obviously I'm trying to say things in order to have effect and ultimately make an impact. At the end of the day, I'm making generalizations. It doesn't apply to all things. So Vikram, your business, but
there's
here's
two agents. There's
Yeah.
hands-on and then there's hands-off.
Yeah, no, but again, it leads to the next part of all of this. And again, this is probably a little bit confusing. We're all over the place at the moment, so forgive me. But I'm on a little bit of a tangent. But
You're doing great.
but realistically, here's a great example, Vikram. I can say this to you. I can categorically say to you that 47% of the time you would have undersold one of your properties. And you're going to go, well, what do you mean? I sold it in 7 days. We never held them on the market that long. So the thing that we've done in all of the marketplaces that we've entered, and I'll get to the point and bring it back to our previous conversation here shortly. I'll tie it in. Okay. But you don't know what you don't know. And this is one of the things. You don't know what you don't know. And my job within our auction business is take the traditional real estate element and pick it apart. So one of the things that we strategically look at, we entered the Bay Area market and all of a sudden the agents are like, well, why would I use auction? We already do this. We basically do an offer date within 7 days. We list it a little bit below what the property's worth and we get multiple offers on the property. So what we had to do is that we had to start comparing traditional results to our auction results of very, very similar properties in very, very similar timeframes.
Totally.
So for example, we had a property in the Marina District. It was a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom. Okay, it was a pretty small property. It was a block back from the water in the San Francisco. They did a traditional listing on the property. They listed it at $800,000. They had 3 offers on it. It sold for $980,000, and they had an offer date of 7 days. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing, great. We had an auction in the building a week later. Okay, that we went live. We held it on the market for 3 weeks. We got triple the volume of offers on the property prior to auction, and we sold it for $1,065,500, the exact same property on the exact same floor in the exact same marketplace in the exact same timing. Now, so that made me think, I'm like, well, hang on a second. When did the best buyer come to that property? It was the end of week 2, early beginning of week 3, or for that particular property that bid the most on the property, right? Now, I know that auction's going to get more than a multiple offer situation because of the transparency. A property's not worth as much as someone's willing to pay, nor is it worth as much as someone's willing to pay in competition. It's worth as much as someone's willing to pay in transparent competition. Now, that said, that's not the whole thing with auction. So we started monitoring this, and we've monitored this over thousands of auctions that we've done over the last 4 years. On average, 47% of the time, the highest bidder or the person who puts the highest offer in prior to auction sees the property at the end of week 2, beginning of week 3. So anybody that promotes to me in any of the markets that we keep that statistic, which is quite a few, I can say to you that 47% of the time, if you've sold it within 7 days, you've actually undersold the property. But again, I don't think that's the agent's fault whatsoever, because you don't know what you don't know. And leading back to where we started is that why do I think that the nature of people is to build businesses where they're arm's length apart from their clients or trying to make them as passive as possible, is because that's the way the industry is leading. That is where all these people that we promote and we put on Inman and we put on our podcasts, and like, for example, I've got my own podcast, Rethink Real Estate. The other day I had a guy on from EXP that genuinely said to me, I don't focus on selling real estate. I just focus on recruiting people. And I called him the M way of real estate, and he got real pissed off with me, and I guarantee you I won't publish that episode. But where it comes down to is that it's what the industry is leading to from the perspective of what we are teaching people. That's where it's coming from. And there's such mass quantities of people going, oh, so I can buy leads now, or I can do all this stuff, not to focus on the fundamentals. I had a guy the other day, and final part of my rant, and you guys can take this back over. I had a guy the other day on YouTube comment on one of my videos, and he said, because I was talking about, I believe that it's actually professionally crippling for an agency or a team to provide buyer leads to an early set agent, because they get too reliant on things coming inbound. They don't learn how to hunt and gather. And he responded saying, oh, but it's really easy. It's much better because then we have things to work on.
Bro,
you're
100%. I had an agent on my team, first year with me. Before he met me, 3 years, he probably did 5 deals. First year with me, $200,000. Never had a year under 250 with me for 4 or 5 years. I dissolved my company, had to do some personal things. The minute I left, 6 months later, he was back to the 3 to 4 year deal agent. But we taught him how to do everything. He knew how to door knock. He knew how to expired. He went out on his own listings. He did his own open houses. He wrote him and I would sit down, have Scotch write scripts till 2:00 in the morning. The minute I left, something flipped. He had 4,572 leads that Cody's company is now calling on behalf of my clients that I work with, did nothing with them. 385 clients that loved me because we tag teamed everything in the first couple of years. He's closed maybe 10 transactions in the last 2 years. So I agree with you 100%. It's the people that want buyer leads. They're not the people that are going to be successful without somebody feeding them.
Well, and I think the other thing about, and kind of hopping on, like from somebody that, runs a marketing agency, we generally don't work with new agents because like I run that same sentiment. Like I was on a call the other day with a guy who wanted to leave his team because the team leader said he needs to work 2 to 3 times harder in order to generate the same amount of income he generated last year because the market's different. It's down. Explaining to him everything we chatted about the market being down 25, 26% specifically in his market. And he didn't like that answer, and get buyer leads when like people, we get reliant on, like, and I love what you said, we get reliant on the low hanging fruit. It's not that the low hanging fruit's not good. It just means that like when that low hanging fruit or the market shifts or, what's happening right now in its entirety, where in multiple markets across the US, we're down 30% and people don't know how to counteract that being down 30% to still drive revenue because they never really had a business to begin with. They had a wishful thinking. So when we think about auctions and we think about these different unique selling propositions is what we would call them at our agency, how does somebody like implement or like, say for example, we have an agent out there who's like, look, like I am doing deals, but maybe it's not, maybe the deal flow isn't quite what it was last year, but I'm looking for a new way in order to generate seller business, in order to generate listings. Like, how does somebody start in the process? Like, say, for example, I'm a Keller Williams agent, or I'm an EXP agent, or I'm with Real. How do I adopt the auction process for my business so that I'm able to get more listings? Like specifically, if you're a buyer's agent, what if you're doing 30 deals a year and you're a buyer's agent, you're representing a buyers? How do you flip without dropping the money? Because I think this is where a lot of the buyer agents worry is they're like, maybe they've never really done listings, but they've built a good buyer business. How do they reposition while not dropping the buyer business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So how do you integrate auction into your business is pretty simple. Is that one of the things that I would suggest, first of all, is that if you are active listing agent at the moment, or you do have listings at the moment, take your most difficult case study of anything that you've got at the moment that's sitting on the marketplace for a little longer than what you ultimately would like, something, where you need help. The process of what we provide is, yes, it's a set deadline. It creates leverage when you don't have leverage, all of these different things. We speak about this to agents on a daily basis, that if your home's on the marketplace for 14 plus days, a buyer walks into that property, they automatically know that they're in complete control with the negotiation, or their agent does anyway. So at the end of the day, you need to create leverage in that situation. Converting it to an auction creates the anonymity of the auction event itself. Now, keep in mind, we are an auction company that does live auctions. This is my live auction studio. We have an auctioneer. We take it to auction day. We do registered bidders, but about 35% of our properties sell prior to auction day through a traditional offer where someone puts an offer in to stop the auction. Because that's another thing that a lot of agents say is that, well, we like the non-transparency of multiple offers because a buyer will pay way more than somebody else. And if they do pay so much more than someone else, then we can stop the auction and we can take that offer prior to auction. But if they're all around a similar price point, taking it to live auction will get the most amount of money. But leading back to the question, Cody, is that how do we integrate it in? Take a listing that's sitting on the marketplace for a longer period of time than what you like, and let's convert it to auction, and we will work through that with you the entire way. You are designated a regional auction director that is responsible. I see that the real estate transaction, and us having overthought the real estate transaction, there's a big deficit within a real estate transaction in my eyes from an agent perspective. The best agents are very good at wearing multiple different hats. So they can be the person that deals in the emotion, and they can also then take the hat off and deal in the fact with the client at the same time. Whereas 99.9% of agents are not very good at that. Okay. So again, what auction presents is that we present the factual element of what a listing needs. And the agent still needs to deal in the emotion of where it is, what it offers, why it's amazing, all of those things. Where the auction team, we deal in the fact. We follow up with all the buyers, agents, everybody on a consistent calling perspective, to anybody that enters the property. And we ask them very specific questions. Not only do we explain the auction process, hey, currently we're in the pre-auction stage of the process. We're accepting offers prior to auction day. If the seller doesn't receive an offer which meets their non-disclosed reserve prior to the whatever date it is, the auction date, the 7th of September, then we will go to auction. However, in the meantime, like I said, you can put an offer in prior to auction. Now, when can I get your client back for a second showing? Oh, no, they're not interested. Now, this is one part of the process. We get phone calls. So let's say that an agent is working hand in hand with the auction team. They call, hey, Ben, I just had a great showing on this property. The agent and the buyer, they seem to love it. They said that they'll come back to me. Can you reach out to them and explain the auction process? We call them 50% of the time. Oh, sorry, Ben, we just didn't want to tell the listing agent that we're just really not interested at all. It's amazing the cut through that we have from a third party perspective to be involved in that listing with the agent. It's still their listing. It's still their client. It's still in the MLS under their information, all of that stuff. But then the third party element, the next part that is the most valuable element, is that we have no preconceived idea of what that property is worth. Whilst we have a general idea of the area, I've got no idea of what a property is worth in Seattle at the moment. So what we ask though is, say, Vikram, you're the agent, or say you're the buyer, how much do you think the property's worth? Oh, well, we're not quite sure. Well, what's your budget? How long have you been looking for? What offers have you placed on other properties? Okay. And we get credible feedback. Our feedback equals price, and we provide the pricing feedback back to the sellers in order to give them an understanding of the marketplace. And it's from an unedited perspective, because an agent might be editing that based on what they've already told them or based on the hope that there is going to be someone else out there. Either
They don't want to get fired.
Correct. Now the next part of this is that if you don't have any listings at all and you're a buyer's agent and you want to integrate auction in, it is an unbelievable concept. I have proof of concept times 100 of agents at the moment that are buyer's agent that come and join our company or in an area use auction in order to start making phone calls to expired listings, because they can genuinely offer them something different that has been specifically designed to help them out of their situation. Okay. Or if they're very good, is start canvassing an area or a farm area. And if they say, hey, look, I can't compete with this person. I'll give you an example. Do you guys know who Tim Smith is?
Heard of the guy before out of Newport Beach.
That's right. Tim's probably one of the best Coldwell banker agents in the country. He is.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he is. There's a guy by the name of Wesley Williams who was he started off in Newport Beach. Dover Shores was sort of his area that he chose. And we thought he was mad, because you don't just walk into an average sale price of $4 million being a soccer coach and then to be in real estate and start taking over. But he did. He started taking advantage of the element of the fact that most sellers in that marketplace wanted too much money for their property, because he was in a cycle similar to the one that we're about to go through, where I think real estate prices are going to stay relatively stagnant. And the people why we're listing as many properties as what we are through auction at the moment is because most of our sellers bought it in the last 3 years and they need a certain amount of money for their property, and it's sitting on the marketplace for a longer period of time. And that is your opportunity to take advantage of the agents that have absolutely no idea around how to process inventory and how to speak to sellers about their expectations and what they need to do if they did want to move on. And that's what auction does in order to help that. It also helps, obviously, out-profile and outprice any of the competition listings in that individual marketplace. So he went into that marketplace, took advantage of the fact that Tim was building and has built a model where he is so far detached from the client because of how big his team is. And he went in there and all of a sudden he had 14% market share within an area of Newport Beach inside the first 18 months of him being in real estate. And that was because he was offering something completely different. And the other thing also is that and this is probably a characteristic of a lot of our people that do this, he didn't buy into what the other agents were saying. Like at an open house, oh, is this one of those auction things?
Let's dive into that for a second, Ben, because I think that's a really important factor. That I think one of the reasons why there's some agents who are really successful in a short period of time and other agents who aren't. When you say the water cooler talk, or an agent walks in and starts bashing you, I was one of the first agents in the country to buy Zillow leads. They're still paying dividends today. I laugh when people say Zillow's stupid. I'm like, sure, they might be stupid, but it's $1 trillion company. I've made millions out of it. So like, clearly it's been working. When you say the water cooler talk or the open house talk being bought in, can you talk about the mindset real quick around the agent who's able to stand up to the peer pressure? Because really what it is, it's peer pressure and bullying.
Yeah.
How does an agent stand up to that in this market?
So we teach people in the early degree is that let us talk to them, being the auction team that is involved, because a lot of agents don't want to deal with the conflict. However, those that really do want to buy into the concept and want to absolutely help change a marketplace and want to add this process to their marketplace, we say to them, don't defend the process. Don't defend it. Don't try and argue with somebody. If they come in and they say, oh, is this one of those auction things? I really don't want to deal with that thing, blah, 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 blah. Is that then just be like, no problem. There's plenty of other properties out there. You're more than welcome to purchase those, but our sellers have chosen to use this process in order to find out what the property's worth in today's market. I'm happy to help you through it, but if this isn't for you, best of luck. And ultimately, that's the first part of all of this. But the thing that we talk to and the people that really resonate with this process is that you've got to train them not to be such avid believers. Like, I've got agents that have full outright arguments with other agents at the front of an open house. And you're like, no, you can't do that. Because the way that I put it to you is that, have you ever jumped in a taxi and mentioned Uber? That's what happens. That is what we're doing in an industry. We're not trying to change it. We're just trying to add something that's different. But in essence, is that you go and talk to, I'm probably generalizing, you go and talk to an agent that doesn't want to change, and you go, hey, look, we've got this auction concept. We do outreach programs where a property hits a certain amount of days on market. We'll send them an email and we'll send them a social media thing and all of this type of stuff. Say, hey, we'd love to talk to you about doing a presentation to you about our auction process. So then you can see if you would like to open it up to your sellers, we'd present to them, still your listing, you're 100% in control. I get the responses I get from people.
Oh, I can only imagine. They're good.
Fucking believable. It is just, and so we want, the pettiness in me wants to respond. So no problem, because when we sit in front of a seller, okay, or we do a presentation, we bat at a 99% success rate, because it's so logical what we're offering that if you've been on the marketplace for a little while, a seller most of the time will turn around and go, that makes total sense. Yes, let's do it. So by you saying no, do you give me permission to go to your sellers? Because that's who needs to make the decision. And an agent isn't making that decision. And this is where we are at risk. We are at risk at all times, our industry, of being taken over. Like, look at the buyer side lawsuit that's happening. That will change the industry in some way, shape or form. Will it be major? Who knows? That'll depend on whether the banking company, the loan companies allow you to finance the buyer side commission or not. But realistically, we can be extinct if we're not open to different things as agents. At the end of the day, it's a client's decision. We're just trying to help.
So I want to wrap up here with, I totally agree with everything you're saying, because I think that, like Vic, you were saying about Zillow, it's like, people shit on Zillow, they shit on everything, and people shit on everything in Facebook groups. I can't even go into a Facebook group without like people shitting on something. Zillow, auction process,
online leads,
coaching, door knocking, cold calling, coaching. I think the big thing here is that the big lesson I'm learning is that the consumer at the end of the day will decide who they trust and who they don't trust. The consumer has decided that they trust Zillow, and we just have to come to a realization that the industry has trusted Zillow. It's like, how do we build back that trust, I think, is the big message. And, and a lot of that is adopting new ideas, adopting new technology, adopting new things that allow us to think about selling real estate differently. AI is going to change the way that we sell real estate. All these things change. And Ben, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to just explain to us a different perspective that the American and even the Canadian market need to consider in the process of buying and selling real estate. So if somebody were to want to reach out to you and they want to have a conversation about, maybe they want to learn about the auction process, maybe they want to just pick your brain, maybe they want to connect with you via your podcast, where's the best place we can send them to learn a little bit more about what you're doing in the real estate space?
ben.brady@harcourtsauctions.com, and I'll connect you guys with whoever we need to in your particular marketplace. Obviously on Instagram, Harcourts Auctions, you can get us there. Our website, harcourtsauctions.com, if you want to look at the properties that we're doing at the moment. The one thing that we've gotten very good at is documenting every single result and every single success that we've ever had through the process, because the evidence needs to defeat disbelief, certainly when you're doing something a little bit different. But yeah, Instagram, things like that, like email me, and I can give you my phone number as well. Like, again, just reach out. We're happy to do a presentation to explain the concept of auction, how it ultimately works, so therefore you can grasp it. Then you can choose whether or not you take it to your clients. At the end of the day, you need to be completely comfortable with the notion of the process. But at the end of the day, I think, Vikram, you said before, is that Zillow leads have paid dividends for you because you were an early adopter of it. And now it might be different for somebody that tries to enter into that in a particular marketplace. Auction's the same thing. The early adopters are the ones that are going to take ultimate advantage of this and create a department of their business and own the concept of it, regardless of where you are. Now, at the end of the day, the only reason that I haven't offered this to every single agent in North America is because it's very difficult to scale a process with the level of service that we have through the entire thing. It's very, very high touch. And if you're not sick of us by the end of the process, there's something that's gone wrong. But realistically is that it's something that we're trying to teach the fundamentals of real estate a little bit differently, and we're trying to remove the agent's opinion of value out of the equation as well and letting the marketplace speak. The mission statement that we had when we built this process for North America was it's not the promise of a price like traditional. It is a process to find the value, and the client gets to say yes or no. I think that's the major difference with all of this.
Yeah. Ben, I want to say thank you. This was a great episode. And I want to say thank you for tuning into another episode of the RE Agent Podcast. We'll see you soon.